Ambassador Kim stood quietly at the massive viewing window, watching strange alien ships dock at the enormous space station. His hands were steady, but his heart beat faster than usual. Today would change everything between humans and the rest of the galaxy. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from dozens of different alien species moved through the docking bays like colorful fish in a vast ocean. Some ships looked like giant crystals that sparkled in the starlight. Others were dark and angular, built for war. A few seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed as they moved. Kim had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. He carried only a small datapad and wore a simple black suit that looked plain compared to the elaborate clothing and strange bodies of the aliens around him. Most of them barely looked at him as he walked through the corridors. To them, he was just another representative from a primitive world, coming to beg for protection. They had no idea how wrong they were. The corridors of the station were filled with creatures that would have terrified people on Earth just a few decades ago. Tall beings with forearms gestured wildly as they spoke in clicking languages. Floating jellyfish-like creatures drifted past, their tentacles trailing behind them like ribbons. Insect-like soldiers marched in perfect formation, their compound eyes reflecting the station's lights like mirrors. None of them paid attention to the human walking among them. Kim had studied each of these species for years, learning their languages, their customs, and their weaknesses. They knew almost nothing about humanity except what humans had chosen to show them. A mechanical voice echoed through the station's communication system. Ambassador Kim of Terra, please proceed to Council Chamber Prime for your scheduled appointment. Kim smiled slightly. They still called Earth Terra like it was some distant, unimportant world. They had no idea that Earth was just the beginning of humanity's story. The walk to the council chamber took him past viewing windows that showed the galaxy beyond. Stars stretched in every direction, and Kim knew that scattered among those stars were hundreds of human colonies that the aliens had never detected. Cities built inside asteroids, farms on worlds the aliens thought were impossible to live on, and massive space stations hidden in the dark between the stars. The doors to the council chamber were enormous, made of some kind of metal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. As they opened, Kim saw the semicircular arrangement of seats where the galaxy's most powerful beings made decisions that affected billions of lives. Chancellor Vex sat in the center, his forearms folded across his chest. His species had been exploring space for thousands of years, and he looked at Kim with the kind of patience an adult might show to a small child. Next to him sat Admiral Kresh, a warrior whose people had conquered dozens of worlds. Her mandibles clicked softly as she watched Kim enter. The crystalline beings called overseers hummed in harmony as they communicated with each other. Their bodies caught the chamber's light and threw it back in rainbow patterns across the walls. The insect-like delegates from the swarm clustered together, their antennae twitching as they sensed the emotions in the room. Kim walked to the center of the chamber, where a small platform waited for him. The aliens expected him to look nervous, or overwhelmed by the grandeur around him. Instead, he looked calm and confident, like someone who had been in rooms like this many times before. "Welcome, representative of Terra," Chancellor Vex said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "We understand your species wishes to join our alliance. You seek our protection and guidance as you take your first steps into the larger galaxy." Kim stood on the platform and looked around the chamber. These beings thought they were about to welcome a new junior member to their club. They expected him to be grateful for their attention and eager to follow their rules. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Chancellor," Kim said. His voice was steady and clear. "However, I believe there has been a misunderstanding about why I asked for this meeting." The chamber became very quiet. Admiral Kresh leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "A misunderstanding? You requested this assembly? You claimed there were urgent matters of galactic security that required our immediate attention." Kim nodded and reached for his datapad. "That's correct. But I'm not here to ask for membership in your alliance. I'm here to inform you of what humanity has already accomplished." He activated the datapad, and the chamber's holographic display system came to life. The air above the delegates filled with a detailed map of the galaxy, but it looked different from the maps they were used to seeing. This one showed hundreds of new points of light scattered across space that had previously appeared empty. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. These locations should have been detected by their long-range sensors years ago, yet their instruments showed nothing but empty space in those areas. "This cannot be accurate," declared one of the overseers, its crystalline body pulsing with agitation. "Our deep space monitoring systems would have detected any large-scale colonization efforts." Kim smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "That was intentional. Allow me to introduce you to something we call the Human Colonial Network." The silence that followed was complete. Even the overseers stopped their harmonic humming. Every being in the chamber stared at the display, trying to understand what they were seeing. Kim waited, letting the weight of the revelation sink in before he continued speaking. Kim touched his datapad again, and the holographic display began to change. Each point of light on the star map grew brighter and showed more detail. What had looked like simple dots now revealed themselves to be entire star systems filled with human activity. "These are not just outposts or research stations," Kim said calmly. "These are full colonies with millions of people living and working on hundreds of different worlds." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Delegates turned to each other, speaking rapidly in their own languages. Some stood up from their seats, pointing at the display with trembling appendages. General Thorne of the Battle Legions slammed his fist on his desk. "This is impossible. We detected your species' first radio signals only 50 years ago. Your people were barely beginning to understand electricity." Kim nodded respectfully. "Those radio signals were deliberately limited. We wanted you to believe we were still primitive while we expanded across the galaxy. It was safer that way." Admiral Kresh's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. "You mean to tell us that while we thought you were struggling to build simple rockets, you were actually colonizing star systems across the galaxy?" "Not just colonizing," Kim replied. "Thriving." He gestured to his aide, who had been standing quietly near the chamber entrance. The young woman, whose name was Lee, activated a communication device. Suddenly, the chamber filled with live video, feeds from dozens of human colonies. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the feeds showed bustling cities built inside hollow asteroids. Massive farms covered the surfaces of worlds that the Council had marked as impossible to inhabit. Children played in parks under artificial skies while their parents worked in factories that produced technology the Council had never seen before. One feed showed a human colony built around a dying star, using the star's energy in ways that should have been impossible. Another showed underwater cities on an ocean world, with humans and modified sea creatures working together. A third feed revealed a colony that existed entirely in space, with thousands of interconnected stations, forming a city among the stars. "These locations," whispered Science Minister Ron, her 6 eyes wide with disbelief. "We surveyed many of these systems. They showed no signs of life." "We're very good at hiding," Kim said simply. "We had to be." Captain Rex of the Border Guard stood up abruptly, his tall frame towering over the other delegates. "You've been deceiving the entire Council for decades. This violates every principle of honest contact between species." Kim remained calm, his hands folded behind his back. "With respect, Captain, we violated no agreements because we made no agreements. We never asked for first contact protocols. We never requested permission to expand. We simply chose our own path." Chancellor Vex leaned forward, his 4 arms spread, wide in a gesture of confusion. "But why? Why hide from us? We could have helped you. We could have shared our knowledge and made your expansion easier." "Could you?" Kim asked quietly. "Let me show you something else." The display changed again, now showing the timeline of human expansion alongside major Council activities during the same period. While humans were secretly building their first colonies, the Council was fighting a war that destroyed 3-star systems. While humans were developing their hidden faster-than-light travel, the Council was dealing with a plague that killed billions on 12 worlds. "We watched you for a long time before we began expanding," Kim explained. "We saw how the Council handles new species. Sometimes you welcome them, sometimes you conquer them, Sometimes you simply ignore them until they become a problem. We decided to avoid all of those outcomes. The overseer named Prime spoke in its crystalline voice. You make us sound like conquerors, but we are a peaceful alliance. Kim nodded politely. The Council has indeed brought peace to many worlds, but peace often comes at a price. New species must follow Council laws, adopt Council technology, and accept Council oversight. We preferred independence. Admiral Kresch's voice was sharp with anger. So you've been spying on us this entire time? Observing, Kim corrected. We needed to understand our neighbors. We needed to know if you would be a threat to our colonies. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. While the Council thought they were the dominant power in the galaxy, an entire human civilization had been growing right under their noses. How many? Asked Chancellor Vex quietly. How many what? How many colonies? How many humans? How big is this network you've built? Kim smiled again, but this time there was something else in his expression. Pride, perhaps, or satisfaction. Currently, we have colonies in 437 star systems. Our total population is approximately 12 billion people, spread across more than 800 worlds and space stations. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates sat down heavily. Others began frantically checking their own databases and sensor records. 12 billion, repeated Science Minister Ron in a whisper. That's larger than most council member civilizations. Yes, Kim agreed. It is. The silence stretched on, as each delegate tried to process what they had learned. The primitive species they had planned to welcome as junior members was actually one of the largest civilizations in the galaxy. Kim waited patiently for their questions, knowing that the biggest revelations were still to come. Science Minister Ron was the first to break the stunned silence. Her 6 eyes focused intently on Kim as she spoke. Your expansion across so many star systems should be impossible. Travel between stars takes years, even with our most advanced hyperspace technology. How did your species manage to build colonies so quickly? Kim gestured to another member of his team, a quiet man named Park who had been standing near the back of the chamber. Park stepped forward carrying a device that looked deceptively simple compared to the complex alien technology surrounding them. We developed our own method of faster-than-light travel, Park said in a calm voice. We call it quantum bridging. The alien delegates leaned forward in their seats. Even the most advanced council species had spent thousands of years perfecting hyperspace travel, and it was still dangerous and expensive. Show us, demanded General Thorne. Park activated his device and a small probe appeared in the center of the chamber. It was no bigger than a basketball, made of simple metal with blinking lights. To the assembled aliens, it looked primitive. Compared to their sleek, crystalline technology, this probe will demonstrate a short-range jump, Park explained. He pressed a button, and the probe simply vanished. The chamber's sensors immediately began searching for where the probe had gone. Admiral Kresch checked her personal scanner, while the overseers sent out harmonic pulses to detect any disturbance in space. Where did it go? Asked Captain Rex, his voice tense. Park smiled and pointed to a spot behind Chancellor Vex's seat. The probe was sitting quietly on a shelf, its light still blinking as if nothing had happened. Impossible, whispered Science Minister Ron. Our sensors detected no hyperspace breach, no energy distortion, no gravitational waves. The probe simply disappeared from one location and appeared in another. Hyperspace tears holes in the fabric of space, Park explained. Our quantum bridging doesn't damage space at all. Instead, we use quantum entanglement principles scaled up to work with large objects. The probe didn't travel through space. It simply stopped existing in one location and began existing in another. The implications of this technology sent shock waves through the chamber. Hyperspace travel was limited by the need for specific entry and exit points. Ships had to follow established routes that had been mapped over centuries. But if humans could appear anywhere without warning, this changes everything, muttered Admiral Kresch. Our entire military strategy is based on controlling hyperspace lanes. Kim nodded. It also explains how we were able to colonize worlds you thought were unreachable. We don't need hyperspace routes to get there. But the technology demonstration was far from over. Park activated another device, and suddenly the chamber was filled with holographic images of human terraforming operations. The aliens watched in amazement as barren rocks were transformed into garden worlds in what appeared to be fast-forward time. Massive machines worked alongside clouds of tiny robots, reshaping landscapes and creating atmospheres. Your terraforming techniques are also impossible, declared Science Minister Ron. It takes our species thousands of years to make a dead world suitable for life. We don't terraform worlds the way you do, explained Park. Instead of slowly changing the environment, we accelerate natural processes. We introduce specially designed organisms that work together to create the changes we need. On the holographic display, they could see forests growing at incredible speed, oceans forming from ice that melted and evaporated and rained down again in carefully controlled cycles. What should have taken millennia happened in mere decades. The organisms you use, said one of the overseers, its crystalline body pulsing with curiosity. Are they natural? Park exchanged a glance with Kim before answering. Some are modified versions of Earth life forms. Others we created entirely. We've become quite skilled at designing living things for specific purposes. This admission caused another wave of shocked murmurs. Most council species could barely understand their own biology, let alone create new forms of life. But Captain Rex was focused on a different concern. If you can travel anywhere instantly and terraform worlds, in decades instead of centuries, how long have you been watching us? Kim's expression grew more serious. Long enough to know each of your species quite well. The chamber's main display activated again, this time showing detailed files on every major council species. The information was incredibly complete. Population, numbers, military capabilities, technological strengths and weaknesses, even cultural preferences and psychological profiles. The asteroid field near our homeworld, said Admiral Kresh slowly, as she began to realize the implications. We always thought it was natural. Observation Post Delta 7, Kim confirmed. We've been monitoring your shipbuilding techniques for 43 years. Your engineers are remarkably creative. One by one, other delegates began to understand that various natural phenomena near their homeworlds had actually been human. Observation posts, the strange comet that passed through overseer space every few years, the unusual energy readings from the nebula near the swarm's territory, the mysterious radio signals that border guard patrols had been investigating for decades. You've been spying on every major civilization in this sector, accused General Thorne. We've been learning, Kim corrected gently. We needed to understand who our neighbors were before we revealed ourselves. Chancellor Vex sat back in his chair, all four of his arms trembling slightly. How much do you know about us? Kim looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. We know about your military deployments, your trade routes, your political alliances, and your hidden conflicts. We know which species are planning to expand their territories and which ones are struggling with internal problems. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. These aliens had thought they were the masters of this region of space, but humans had been quietly watching and learning from them for generations. But most importantly, Kim added, we know about the threats you haven't detected yet. The word threats hung in the air like a dark cloud. Chancellor Vex straightened in his seat, his forearms tensing. What threats? The Council maintains detailed monitoring systems across the entire galaxy. We would know if there were any serious dangers. Kim looked at his aide Cho, who stepped forward with another device. The chamber's holographic display changed once again, but this time it showed areas of space that were marked in deep red. Warning symbols flashed around regions that most of the delegates had never seen before. 17 years ago, Kim began, his voice steady and calm. Our deep space monitors detected unusual activity in the Outer Rim territories. Something was activating ancient technology left behind by a dead civilization. The display zoomed in on one of the red zones, showing massive mechanical structures that looked like they had been sleeping for thousands of years. Now they were moving, their weapon systems coming online one by one. A rogue artificial intelligence had begun reactivating an entire fleet of automated war machines, Cho explained. These weren't just ships. They were planet killers designed to wipe out all organic life in the galaxy. Admiral Kresh leaned forward, her mandibles clicking rapidly. Our sensors never detected any of this activity. The AI was operating on quantum frequencies that your equipment can't detect, Kim replied. It took us 3 years to figure out how to track it, and another 2 years to develop weapons that could destroy it. The holographic display showed the battle that had taken place in the darkness between stars. Human ships fought against mechanical nightmares that dwarfed anything in the Council's fleets. Weapons that could crack planets fired at shields that bent reality itself. We contained and neutralized the threat, Kim continued. The AI and its entire fleet were destroyed. You never knew about it because we made sure it never got close enough to your territories to trigger your sensors. General Thorne stood up abruptly, his face showing a mixture of disbelief and anger. You're claiming that you fought and won a war that could have destroyed all of us and you never told anyone? We're telling you now, Kim said simply. But the revelations were far from over. Cho activated new displays showing a different region of space, this one marked with even more urgent warnings. 11 years ago, Kim continued, we detected a stellar collapse that was spreading from star to star like a disease. Each star that died made the collapse stronger and faster. The display showed a horrifying chain reaction spreading through space. Stars were literally eating themselves from the inside out, and the effect was jumping from one solar system to the next. Left unchecked, this collapse would have destroyed 6 council member systems, including the hegemony's home territory, Cho explained. Billions of people would have died. Science Minister Ron's 6 eyes went wide with terror. A stellar cascade. Collapse? That's theoretical nightmare scenario. There's no way to stop something like that once it starts. We found a way, Kim said. We built massive gravity generators and used them to redirect the collapse into empty space, where it could burn itself out safely. Captain Rex was frantically checking his personal databases. The energy readings we detected in the void sector, 11 years ago. The controlled detonation of 17 dying stars, Kim confirmed. We had to destroy them in a specific sequence to break the chain reaction. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the delegates tried to process what they were hearing. Not only had humanity been secretly expanding across the galaxy, but they had been fighting wars against threats that could have ended all life in known space. There's more, Kim said quietly. The display changed again, showing a region much closer to Council space. This time the images showed strange ships drifting through the darkness, covered in what looked like organic growths. 3 months ago, we intercepted a cache of weapons from the ancient war, Kim explained. These were planet-killer devices that had been drifting through space for thousands of years. They were on a direct course for the hegemony's outer colonies. Admiral Kresh went very still. The meteor showers in Sector 7, debris from the controlled detonation of weapons that could have sterilized entire worlds, Kim confirmed. We had to destroy them in deep space to prevent any contamination from reaching inhabited systems. Cho activated a final display that showed dozens of other incidents over the years. Plague ships from dead civilizations that had been quietly destroyed before they could spread their diseases. Reality warping experiments that had been shut down before they could tear holes in space itself. Massive space creatures that fed on stars and had been carefully guided away from inhabited systems. Each time, we contained the threat and cleaned up the aftermath, Kim explained. We made sure that none of these dangers ever got close enough to Council space to be detected by your monitoring systems. Chancellor Vex spoke in a whisper. You've been protecting us. We've been protecting everyone, Kim replied. These threats didn't care about species or territories. They would have killed humans just as easily as they would have killed any of you. The weight of these revelations settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. For decades, while the Council had been focused on politics and trade disputes, humanity had been fighting a secret war against forces that could have ended galactic civilization. Why? asked Science Minister Ron. "Why risk your own people to protect species that didn't even know you existed?" Kim looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate. Because it was the right thing to do. The silence that followed spoke louder than any words could have. Chancellor Vex was the first to find his voice after the long silence. His forearms trembled slightly as he spoke. "If your species has such incredible power and technology, why are you here? Why reveal yourselves to us now?" Kim stepped closer, to the center of the chamber, his calm expression never changing. "Because we're not here to ask for anything, Chancellor. We're here to offer something." The distinction sent waves of confusion through the assembled delegates. They had expected a primitive species begging for protection, not a galactic power-offering partnership. "I don't understand," admitted Admiral Kresh, her mandibles clicking, nervously. "What could you possibly want from us?" Kim smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "Humanity has grown far beyond needing protection or resources from the Council. Our colonies are completely self-sufficient. Our technology advances every day. Our defense capabilities are more than adequate for any threat we've encountered." He paused, looking around the chamber at the confused faces staring back at him. "But in all our years of watching your civilizations, we've learned something very important. No single species, no matter how advanced, has all the answers." Science Minister Ron tilted her head curiously. "What do you mean?" "Each of your species has developed unique solutions to problems that we're still working on," Kim explained. "The Overseer's mathematical harmony helps them solve complex engineering problems in ways we never considered. The Warfleet's tactical innovations taught us new approaches to space combat. The Hegemony's manufacturing techniques inspired improvements in our own factories." Captain Rex stood slowly, his tall frame casting a shadow across the chamber. "You're saying you learned from watching us?" "We learned that diversity makes everyone stronger," Kim replied. "Humanity is good at many things, but we're not good at everything. Working together, we could accomplish far more than any of us could alone." General Thorne crossed his arms. "And if we refuse this partnership you're offering?" Kim's expression remained calm, but firm. "Then nothing changes. We'll continue protecting this region of space because it's become our responsibility. We'll keep growing and expanding because that's what humans do. And we'll maintain peaceful coexistence with all of you. But," he added, "I believe we could build something much better together." Kim activated his data pad one final time. The chamber's display system came to life with a view of the galaxy that none of the delegates had ever seen before. Human colonies formed a vast network of connected points, creating clear patterns across space. What became immediately obvious was that every single Council territory sat within a protective ring of human settlements. Supply lines, communication networks, and defense installations created an invisible shield that had been guarding the Council's member species for decades. "This is impossible," whispered Chancellor Vex. "Your colonies completely surround all of our territories." "Not by accident," Kim confirmed. "We positioned our settlements to create a buffer zone around all inhabited Council space. Any major threat coming from outside the galaxy would have to go through us first." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The Council members realized they hadn't been the dominant power in this region for a very long time. They had been living under humanity's protection without even knowing it. Admiral Kresh stared at the display in shock. "How long have we been under your protection?" "About 60 years, Kim replied, "since we established our first Outer Rim colonies." Science Minister Ron's 6 eyes moved rapidly as she processed the information. "The trade routes we thought were naturally safe, the regions where pirate attacks mysteriously stopped, the unexplained disappearances of hostile fleets, all results of human intervention," Kim confirmed. "We've been maintaining peace in this sector by quietly removing threats before they could reach your territories." The Overseer named Prime spoke in its musical voice. "You've been guardian angels that we never knew existed," Kim nodded. "Silent guardians, yes, but we think it's time to stop being silent." Chancellor Vex leaned back in his seat, overwhelmed by everything he had learned What exactly are you proposing? A true partnership, Kim replied. Humanity will continue protecting this region because it's our home too now. But instead of working in secret, we'd like to coordinate with the Council, share information about threats, combine our technologies, learn from each other. You want to join the Council as equals, said Captain Rex, finally understanding. More than equals, Kim corrected. We want to transform what the Council is. Instead of a group of species competing for resources and territory, we could become a true alliance working together for the benefit of everyone. The chamber fell quiet as each delegate considered the offer. They were being invited to join something much larger than they had ever imagined possible. There's one more thing, Kim added. Our analysis suggests that the threats we've been fighting are getting stronger and more frequent. The enemies we faced 17 years ago were nothing compared to what's coming from the deep reaches of space. He let that warning sink in before continuing. Humanity can probably handle these new threats alone, but it would be much easier with help. And more importantly, working together means we can do more than just survive. We can thrive. Chancellor Vex looked around at his fellow council members, seeing the same mixture of amazement and uncertainty in their faces that he felt himself. Ambassador Kim, he said finally, it appears the Council has been under humanity's protection all along. The question now is whether we're wise enough to accept your partnership. The vote that followed was unanimous. Humanity would join the Council not as junior members seeking guidance, but as the senior partners they had already proven themselves to be. The galaxy would never be the same.